The 16th of June, uh, 2026, Mars, Tuesday morning. A brief reading from the Common Buddhist Text, guidance and insight from the Buddha. Chief editor of this compilation is Dr. Mahadhamma Kosajan. We are currently in chapter 9, Theravada tradition on wisdom. We left off on the lack of the permanent essential self. The pre-Buddhist text known as the Upanishads taught that within all beings is a permanent essential self. In Sanskrit, it's called the Atman. That is an independent inner controller of actions and identical to Brahman, the impersonal underlying substance of the whole world. Another idea of self is the Jainism idea of an individual life principle, the Jiva, or immortal soul in beings. While Pali and Sanskrit lack capital letters, it is appropriate to use the capital S here to indicate such ideas of the self. The Buddha never directly denied the self, and that could be cited in the Samyutta Nikaya, Volume 4, 400 to 401. But the Buddha emphasized that nothing could be found which could be validly taken as the self or its possession, clearly implying that self does not exist. He also held that to take anything as the self or belonging to it is to make its focus on a limiting attachment, leading to a continual cycle of dukkha, suffering, stress, and pain. And when one takes as an idea or identity as a permanent or reliable self, it turns out not to be so. Those who hold such views on the undetermined issues are seen as doing so because they take one or the other or all of the components of a person into the 5 categories of existence as the permanent self or its possession, cited in the Samyutta Nikaya, Volume 4, 396. So, they think an enlightened person is a self-essence and ask about the fate of this after death or the hereafter, which is pointless. And as for the nirvanic nature of the enlightened person, the Arihat, even in life, that is beyond words. The world as empty of self. The following passage emphasizes that everything is empty of self or anything belonging pertaining to such a thing. It is ananta because it is empty of self and what belongs to self, that it is said, empty is the world. And what is empty of self and what belongs to self, the I, visible forms, awareness, eye consciousness, awareness, eye contact, awareness, whatever feeling arises with eye contact as condition. The same is then repeated as regard to the other 4 physical sense channels and the mental channels of Ayatana. This is cited in the Sunnah Sutra Samyutta Nikaya, Volume 4, 54. No aspects of a person is a permanent self or belonging to such thing. In this passage, a Jain disciple dispute with Sakchaka. Remember, Sakchaka comes to the Buddha to worship him in a debate, as he thinks himself such a clever debater that any opponent will tremble. The Buddha explains why he teaches that everything is anatta or atman, non-self, not something that is permanent, self, or belonging to such a thing. This teaching is applied to the 5 categories of existence that makes up a person. Satyaka thus said to the Blessed One, "How does the good Gotama train the disciples? And in what respect is the renunciant Gotama mostly carried out in his instruction concerning his disciples?" Agivesana, I mostly train my disciples and carry out instruction concerning the disciples in the following manners. Bhikkhu, monks. Material form is impermanent. Feeling is impermanent. Perception is impermanent. Volitional activities are impermanent. And consciousness is impermanent. Bhikkhu, monks. Material form is non-self. Feeling is not identified with or classified as the self. Perception is not identified with or classified as the self. Volitional activities are not identified with or classified as the self. Consciousness is not identified with or classified as the self. All conditioned things are impermanent. Everything is non-classified or identified with as the self. Good Gotama, a comparison occurs to me. Express it, Agivesana. All the varieties of the seeds and vegetables that grow and develop do so, established and supported on earth. And all powerful work that has to be done should be done, established and supported on earth. In the same manner, the individual person with material form as self, established in the material body, begets karmically beneficial or karmically harmful actions. This individual person with feeling as self, with perceptions as self, with volitional activities as self, with consciousness as self, begets karmically beneficial or karmically harmful actions. Agni-vesana, what do you say? Material form is myself. Feeling is myself. Perception is myself. Volitional activities are myself. Consciousness is myself. Good Gotama, I do say so, and so also does this large crowd. What the large crowd says is not what matters. Come, Agivesana, you clarify your own view. Good Gotama, I say that material form is myself. Feeling is myself, perception is myself, volitional activities are myself, and consciousness is myself. Then I will cross question you or cross-examine your question, you yourself on this, and you may reply as you please. Agni-vesana, do head-anointed warrior kings like King Pasenadi Kosala, King Ajatasattu of Magha, wield power over the kingdoms to execute those that have to be executed, to confiscate those things that deserves to be confiscated, and to banish those that have to be banished? Yes, good Gotama, they wield such power. Even the leaders gathered here of the Vajis and the Mallas wield such powers. So there's no question about head anointed warrior kings. Agivesana, you say material form is yourself. Do you wield power over the material form as may my material form be like this and may my material form be like that? No, good Gotama. Attend carefully and reply, Agivesana. What you have said earlier does not agree with what you have said later or latter. And what you have said latter does not agree with what you have said earlier, Agivesana. You say that feeling, perception, volitional activities, consciousness are yourself. Do you wield power over your feelings, over perceptions, volitional activities, and consciousness? No, good Gotama. Attend carefully and reply, Agivesana. What you have said earlier does not agree what you have said with the latter. What do you think, Agivesana? Is material form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, good Gotama. Is that which is impermanent painful or pleasurable? Painful, good Gotama. Is that which is impermanent painful having a transcendent nature, suitable to be considered as this is mine, this is I am, this is myself, classified with and identified with? No, good Gotama. The same is then repeated in regards to each of the feelings, perception, volitional activities, and consciousness. Agivesana, a certain one views and clings to the attachment to the painful, gone into the painful, cleaving, grasping, holding on to the painful, regards it as this is mine. I am this. This is myself. Would he comprehensively understand the painful by himself or live having fully destroyed the painful? Good Gotama, how could it be? No, good Gotama, that would not happen. Agivesana, like a man wandering in search for wood, would enter the forest with a sharp axe, and seeing a tall, straight, new plantain tree, he would cut it at the root, and at the top, he would then open up the sheaves and would not come even to the sapwood. So how could there be heartwood? In the same manner, Agivesana, in trying to examine me, to find fault with me, to debate with me in connection with your theory, it has turned out to be empty, useless, and rejected. Sakchaka said, good Gotama, put aside this view of mine, and also the view of all other renunciants and Brahmins, which I think it is like idle talk. How do the disciples of the good Gotama practice according to his message? Follow the given advice, dispel doubts, become confident and able to abide, not relying on one another in the dispensation of the teacher. Here, Agivesana, my disciples see whatever material form in the past, future, and present, internal or external, coarse or refined, inferior or superior, far or near, in entirety as this is not mine, I am not this, this is not myself. This is seen with proper insight, as it is really has come to be. Whatever feeling, whatever perception, whatever volitional activities, whether conscious in the past, are seen as they have come to be. Agivesana. With this much, my disciples have practiced according to the message. This is cited from the Kula Satchaka Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya, Volume 1, 228 to 235. The idea of a self-essence has no basis and is harmful. This passage shows clearly that Gautama Buddha's teaching did not accept or affirm the existence of an external self of any sort, and saw a belief in such thing as harmful. Taking something as self or as possession makes its focuses on attachment. Recognizing it as non-self leads to a liberating and letting go from it, from attachment. Bhikkhus, monks, the learned noble disciple, a seer of noble ones, accomplished in the teaching of the noble ones, well trained in the teaching of the noble ones, a seer of good persons, sees material form as, this is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. Sees feeling, perceptions, volitional activities. See whatever is seen, heard, felt, conceptualized, volitional activities. See whatever is seen, heard, felt, cognized, attained, sought after, and reflected in the mind as, this is not mine. And whatever is that dogmatic standpoint, the world is the self. I will hereafter become permanent, enduring, eternal, of the nature of non-changing, will remain like eternity. This too is seen as not mine. I am not this. This is not myself. When one discerns like this, one has no agitation regarding the non-existence. Bhikkhu, monks, you must grasp the object of grasping, which is permanent, everlasting, eternal, or unchanging nature, and will stay the same like unto eternity. Bhikkhus, monks, do you see such an object of grasping? No, venerable sir. Good. I too do not see any. Bhikkhus, monks, you must hold that dogma of a self, which when one holds on to it, does not give rise to grief, lamentation, pain, unhappiness, and distress. Do you see like that? No, venerable sir. Good. I too do not see any. Bhikkhus, monks, you may depend on the dependence on dogmatic belief, which when you depend on it does not give birth to grief. Do you see such dependence on dogmatic belief? No, venerable sir. Good. I too do not see any. Bhikkhus, monks, when there is a self, would there be the idea there is something belonging to self? Yes, venerable sir. However, when the self or what belongs to the self is in truth and reality not attainable, isn't this dogmatic position taken as the road is the self? I will hereafter become permanent, everlasting, eternal, of the nature of the non-changing. I will remain like eternity, fully, entirely a foolish doctrine? How could it not be, sir? It is fully and entirely a foolish doctrine. Bhikkhu, monks, the learned noble disciple, seeing thus, becomes disenchanted with material form, perception, volitional activity, and consciousness. Being disenchanted, he becomes non-attached. With non-attachment, he becomes release. When released, there is knowledge that one is released. Birth is no more. The requirements of holy life have been fulfilled. What ought to be done has been done, and there is nothing more to be done hereafter. This is cited in the Alakadupama Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya, Volume 1, 136 to 139. We will leave off here on chapter 9 on wisdom from the perspective of the Theravada tradition. it is interesting to look at Satanat Dharma in correlation with Jainism and Buddhism on the perspective of training. But it is a really deep subject, especially if we go into Vedantic tradition and thought, thinking about the ultimate reality and what's this important, how it plays in the aspect of it. I would like to note that during this time of Gautama Buddha, these men were highly educated. And if we started off, they're reversing the truths. The Upanishads are truths laid down from Satanat Dharma. And it goes into looking in the reality and the essence of things. And the state of action, either beneficial or non-beneficial, as what Jainism do. That's why they put strict attention or adherence to ahimsa, nonviolence. And every single practice does that too, but when these ascetics and renunciants were going out to find a way, they were trying to get liberation. In other terms, moksha, release from bondage. And Buddhism found a middle way. But for Gautama Buddha to not specifically say there's not a permanent self, but put strict reliance on what was visible, like feeling, perception, consciousness, volitional activities, and classifying or not identifying of the self. It was allowing to set up the foundations for release, or to be able to not get involved in the action of doing the action, and training for being equal, upekkha, in a sense, equanimity. We will pick up on the next one on karma and its results without a permanent self, on chapter 9 on wisdom from the perspective of the Theravada tradition. This is a brief reading from the common Buddhist text, Guidance and Insight from the Buddha. Chief editor of this compilation is Dr. Mahadhamma Kosajan.